We're back. We're live. Welcome. Let's talk Broncos. Brewmastis, Joey Richards, Zach Seegers. Joey made it back from Mobile, Alabama. Happy to see him here. We'll give a nice little salute.
Oh, no.
I'll take over. You want me to take over? I'll take over. Joey gave a nice little salute. Zach, how are you doing today, though, man? I'm excited that you're back. I'm excited to be back from Mobile, talk ball with you guys, get more into the meat and potato of the offseason. I mean, today we're gonna get into some of it with the news that came out. But first, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, sorry, I feel bad for Bree. Oh no, I was gonna say she looked unfrozen in our green screen or a green room rather, but it looks like she's frozen again. So never mind. I'm doing good. Man, work today was good, was flowing well. You've got me kind of fired up about your Sean Payton offensive line hypothesis. I've been researching that. That's been fun. There's some other big projects I'm working on, LTB related, that I'm excited about. And yeah, I'm feeling great, Joey. How about yourself? You just got back from Mobile. How was that? I know you had some harrowing adventures while you were down there.
Dude, I'm a mess. That's the one thing people need to realize about me. I'm just like a complete disaster. My car got towed during the parade.
But why did it get towed, Joey? You got towed because you parked it in the parade route.
Yeah, but bro, I didn't know it was a whole weekend of the parade. I thought we had the one parade deal, right? I visually saw that. I saw the parade with my own two eyes. And then the next day, I'm like, all right, cool. The parade shit's over. I'm going to go eat. I see a little sign, no parking 2 hours before or after parade. All right, cool. Well, the parade happened yesterday. I'm cool. Next thing you know, it's a 2-day parade. We got parades going both days. I didn't know the rules. I didn't know. So now I'm walking down there, and this is before the parade. I figured that out. So talk to a police officer. I find out what the towing thing is. I'm like, 18-minute walk. I can do that. Go try walking down there. Parade starts. I need to get across the street. Okay. Parade. I can't get across the street because the parade's going on. Talking to this police officer guy. I'm like, what are the odds you can help me across the street? He's like, I can't. And if you go do it, I'm going to arrest you. I'm like, all right, well, bet. I guess I'm going to have to sit here. Check the phone battery. We're at 10%. It's a disaster, but I ended up making it back. Ate some oysters afterwards. Let it roll off my back. But I am a disaster to travel with, just in any circumstance at all. You remember we went to Vegas?
Yeah, you got lost on the Vegas Strip. Your hotel was on the same side of the Vegas Strip as the one we were on. We saw you leave going in the right direction, and we saw you the next morning, and jokingly, because you had gotten lost multiple times on the trip, we were like, oh, Joey, did you get lost last night? And you were like, yeah, I got lost bad.
Just walking all around the Strip. I don't know what I'm doing. You can't just plot me in different areas.
Well, yeah, and it was crazy. You were updating us the whole time, going like, "Oh, guys, I'm down to 15% on my phone. This isn't good." And we're like, "Stop updating us, Joey. Save your phone battery."
Yeah.
What was the highlight of the weekend, though? What was the top moment?
I would say the second day of practice was there was a lot of highlights. I got to talk and meet a lot of cool people on this trip. So shout out to anybody if you're listening to this now or listening to this after. If I met you in Mobile, shout out to you. I met a lot of really cool people, but just watching the practice and stuff like that, it's been something I've wanted to do for a very long time. You can go back to my Twitter, and if you type in Senior Bowl, you will see a tweet from 2021 of me being like, damn, I really want to go. So it's something I've really wanted to do for a long time. And yeah, just seeing the practice, seeing all the players, getting to interview the players on the field. That's something I've never done before. So it's just a really cool experience for my little media thing that I'm trying to do here.
Bree's back.
Yeah, welcome. Sorry about that. Joey, I love it. I was trying to listen to on the other end. It looks like you told a couple of your stories as well. We're glad to have you back, though, and glad that you didn't burn too badly. Sounds like the weather was absolutely fantastic out there while you were there. The same cannot be said for Vegas right now as everybody heads to Radio Row for the Super Bowl, as it was raining for what seems like apocalyptic standards there for the start of championship week. I wish we were out there, and that's a goal for Let's Talk Broncos in the future. Have we covered anything else? Did you give any more takeaways from the Senior Bowl, Joey?
No, just that I'm a mess to travel with. That's about it.
Yeah, I made fun of him for parking his car in the parade route. He actually gave us background on how that happened. I did not know how that happened, and then I gave him shit for getting lost on the strip when we went to Vegas.
Yeah, a nightmare to travel with, but honestly, aside from losing you at every turn, it's a ton of fun. So
yeah, he's a joy to travel with. Like,
definitely.
Here's the thing: most people that require a leash when they travel are a misery. They're screaming toddlers. Joey requires a leash, but he couldn't be more delightful.
And for those that don't know, when my car got towed, I texted you guys. I'm like, I would make the most of this opportunity. See, that's the type of guy I am. I went and immediately walked over and got a funnel cake right after I found out my car was getting towed. Like, hey, you know what? You can't let it ruin the trip.
Yeah, your ability to handle it responsibly while also being like, you know, what's done is done. I'm going to make the most of my last night in Mobile. I applaud you for that, Joey. That was pretty awesome.
It's wild. I would have had a mental breakdown. Zach brings up leashing like he wouldn't leash his own kids. Listen, there's a market for stolen children. You leash them so they don't get taken. I think it's very important. If you leash your kids, I'm not going to judge you. I would leash my own. Just putting that out there. Let's get into more pressing news for the week. Prior to going live today, we found out that it is basically set in stone. Christian Parker to be taking a role with the Eagles defensive staff. Don't know yet if it's going to be a completely lateral move. If it is, I have concerns. But until that gets confirmed, I want to know, how do you guys feel about losing not only someone who we all pretty much admire? I think this could have a large impact on the Denver Broncos secondary. Joey, do you have a differing opinion there?
No. And honestly, just the defense as a whole, you have to be a little worried about, I think. Just because, for those that don't remember, it was largely reported that Christian Parker was teaching Vance Joseph more of that Fangio-styled defense because that's what Sean wanted to run down here. And it's just curious. Like, I'm really curious to know what Parker's role was towards the end. Once everything started to make sense, was Parker still kind of holding VJ's hand during that time? Because if he was, that's really scary, right? And that's just the type of details we don't have here. Like that was never reported. I trust VJ. I think VJ is a good play caller. I'm curious about his kind of talent evaluation and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think he's been a good play caller. I want to see more of it, but this is a huge blow for the Broncos. This is somebody that was literally teaching our defensive coordinator. I'm kind of curious as to why he isn't just the defensive coordinator in that case. Why? That would be just something I would ask.
Yeah, I think it could be as simple as Christian Parker has a pretty good relationship with Vic Fangio, and wanted to work with him again. And the Broncos having a pretty good relationship with Christian Parker allowed it. There's also definitely ways it could be worse. It could be, like you're talking pre-show and Bree kind of alluded to it. It could be Sean Payton and him really clashed and he was kind of pushed out and he decided to go to Philly. I'm curious to ask around to some people and see what I can hear maybe about, what that relationship was like. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a loss. Vance Joseph's background, as Danny just said, is with defensive backs. So that's something. I think Sean Payton, through his career, has demonstrated a pretty good ability to build staffs. So that makes me somewhat optimistic. And I do think the loss of Christian Parker is at least somewhat mitigated by the fact someone's going to hire him to be a defensive coordinator in 2025. I would be pretty surprised if that didn't happen. I think he's been interviewed for positions in back-to-back cycles now. At the very least, he was interviewed multiple times for this year's cycle. I frankly pretty surprised he didn't get the Packers DC job. and he's what I think you want in a modern NFL defensive coordinator. Like, I think Spagnuolo's done an awesome job this year. I think Mike McDonald's done an awesome job this year. It's defensive coordinators that have really stood out, and they don't just have their one pitch. It's not like, well, we do the Fangio thing. Well, we do the whatever thing. And this is true of even Fangio. Like, he's known for what he does, but he also can go outside of that box. He has a deep understanding of defense and can beat you in more ways than one. I think the days of like the Legion of Boom defense, where it's like, hey, we're going to run cover 3 and cover 1, and we're a single high defense, or like Ed Donatel with the Vikings, where it's like, hey, we're a hard Vic Fangio, we're just going to sit in soft shells. Modern offenses are going to figure you out, and they're going to shred you apart. You have to be versatile. You have to be able to win in multiple ways. And I think you look at Ejiro Evero, another one. The defensive coordinators that I think are thriving now have had a varied background, have worked under different structures and different like defensive philosophies. And Parker checks that box. He's been around a good bit in college and now in the NFL. I think he'll do a great job in Philly.
Yep. And you know what? Can I add on to that? Like, I think this is just a little more depressing because we just lost Evero last season. Like, the Broncos are losing out on these guys that I think are looking to move up, but also in both of their situations aren't really moving up. Like that's not a good thing. Like I hate that. Evero, well-renowned defensive coordinator, even still was getting head coaching looks this offseason. And we just lost him to another defensive coordinator spot. If the Christian Parker getting defensive coordinator looks, we just lose him to another kind of position coach, and it's the full details on what his position is hasn't come out. It's just like they're not getting that clear upgrade, yet they're still able to leave. That's something that I guess if it's them wanting to leave, that's one thing. You should be able to do that, but then also it sucks that they're wanting to leave. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think I do think the Evero one is pretty different from this situation, him being friends with Hackett and just being like, I refuse to work for this organization anymore. Like, I don't know what they could have done there. I don't think the Christian Parker one is that. Now, again, if it's tied to Sean Payton, I think that's concerning. If it's just his good relationship with Vic Fangio, his well-documented good relationship with Vic Fangio, like coming back up again and the Broncos kind of making things amicable, that's at least, I think, the best case scenario. That's what I would hope for. Hopefully it's not that Sean Payton's already wearing people out, though I don't think that's a far-fetched explanation for it either. It's going to be curious I'm going to be curious to see where he goes to replace him. And you bring up a good point about the brain drain. Like, this is something we see be problems for like the Rams under McVay. He's recently had to re-spruce his staff, or at least like winning programs. You don't expect to see it from a team like the Broncos. And I don't know, they've lost 2 pretty high-end defensive coaches in as many seasons. I think you're going to see that, I don't know, have a ripple effect.
Yeah, I don't know, though. My earlier transgression that I brought up prior to the show was I didn't want to assume that it was a relationship thing, and I don't want to put that out either. It's just because it's not a brain drain, because it's not a successful team moving on and losing by proxy of building something that's like winning. It just makes you say, why else would it have happened? Hopefully Christian Parker goes on to be very successful. Hopefully he's being paid well for his move. But if anything, I could see there being not a inline version of how coaches want to see this team work. I worried about it when Marcus Dixon and Christian Parker were both retained from the previous staff, that it wouldn't be a long-term scheme here, but it is interesting to stay with Vance Joseph. Maybe he's gotten all he can from Christian Parker, and that's why they felt comfortable in doing so. I know that they don't have to agree if the position is there for a step in the right direction. I don't know, guys. I just I don't feel great about it. I'm not excited for it and what it means about covering this team and the Broncos in general, but I'm very excited for Christian Parker if it means he's getting exactly what he wants by moving to a new team. Joey, yes.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I just absolutely agree with you, Bree. I think there are options out there though that could do that. Like I saw Robbie and the whole Let's Talk Broncos chat saying Sean Desai, and Sean Desai would be an amazing defensive DB coach in particular. I mean, I remember when he was like a defensive consultant on Seattle, there was a report out saying that, hey, Pete Carroll was fine taking Kobe Bryant and then also Tariq Woolen in the picks that they did and starting them as rookies because he felt so comfortable in Sean Desai's ability to have them ready week 1. So like,
and look at how those guys dropped off in year 2.
Right when he left. He's kind of a DB guru. If you're just looking for development, I would say Sean Desai is an awesome option. Now, I think CP was kind of special in his ability to, hey, Sean Payton trusted this guy to teach your defensive coordinator a defense. Like that is so much responsibility for a position coach, like unheard of. I have never heard of anything like that before. So that's a pretty special trait to Parker. Yeah, I don't know. It's just this whole thing is interesting. I'm not sure what to make of it.
I don't love Paul's comment, but we'll talk about it. Said bye Simmons to the Eagles. Is that a higher tier possibility now with the move of Christian Parker?
I say so.
Absolutely. I mean, I do believe the stuff about Simmons and Vic Fangio not getting along great. I understand he said nice things about him at the Pro Bowl when asked about it. That's what's going to happen when players aren't playing. He's not going to be like, yeah, Vic Fangio was the worst. I hate that guy. Like, he's just not going to do that. But I do know there was plenty of friction in that relationship by the end. And that's, I think, putting it pretty mildly. That said, it lines up in every other way. The Eagles are in win now mode. They need serious help in their secondary. I think they could use someone like Justin Simmons, who is a coach on the field, gets everyone in the right position, gets everyone doing their job right. Also could help teach a very complicated Vic Fangio system to the rest of the defense. And they have a pretty glaring need at safety. And the Broncos, I think there's a very good chance they look to trade Simmons this year. So it lines up in every other way outside of the Fangio relationship. Now with Parker going over and probably getting a pretty lofty position like pass game coordinator or something like that, maybe he doesn't have to deal with Fangio as much, and it becomes more appealing to Simmons to head to Philly via trade.
Gross. Dante McCluskey says, so what if this time it's a shitty offseason and we're all down on the Broncos and we come out kicking ass? Just a thought. Dante, I really appreciate your optimism here, especially on this episode of Let's Talk Broncos. I could see it going either way, but I think that you have to go into every season with a little bit of lowered expectations because you just don't want to get hurt again. Sometimes we know we're in for the long haul. Guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being an easy offseason where the Broncos are able to make some big moves, or a 10 being, oh my God, dig the foundation up and rebuild all the structures underneath. You got to re-pour the concrete. What type of rebuild are you anticipating for the Broncos this offseason? Are they going to take it down to the studs? I'm a little scared.
Wait, so what was a 1?
A 1 would be, it's fine. They're just going to taper it off and they're going to make a move or two. And it's really not as bad as we're anticipating. Or 10 is the worst that it could absolutely be. I don't know. I'm going to say like a 6 or a 7, but I think it's more of an 8.5. So let's talk about it.
I think it's a 2. I think it's like a 2. I think they're going to do very little. Oh, I guess like full teardown, like they're going to be selling off pieces and everything. Yeah, I guess maybe like a 4. I guess I don't think they're going to be adding much. I think we'll probably see a couple trades, but I don't know. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy have been rumored to be traded for over a year now. Like the odds of, I think, both those guys getting moved and a Justin Simmons getting moved and a Garrett Bowles getting moved, I think is pretty unlikely. I think a couple of those almost certainly happen. I don't see like the complete hardcore teardown. And I really think when you look at like the Broncos cap table and the moves they'll make to free up money, a lot of them are pretty favorable. Like for my Russ vid, the deals are like, yeah, cut Tim Patrick, bring him back on a cheaper deal. You free up $10 million. That's appealing to everyone. Or don't bring him back at all if you're on that camp. But you know, it works either way. cut DJ Jones, who like kind of underperformed this year and is on the wrong side of 30. That frees up $10 million. And then just like that, they're in a fine cap situation. And that's without getting to the big moves they could start to make that maybe we're getting away from a 2 here. So I'll say like a 4. I don't think it's going to be that disastrous. I think I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah. It depends. And also, I think this depends on how you view it. Like, I think there are a lot of people that'd be like, this roster needs a tear down. They need to rebuild an identity here. So I don't know. Could I see Sean Payton going that way? Absolutely. Like, I think he could. Well, why not? I think that's something that could be in the deck. I think there is a strong argument to be made, which would be towards the 10 side. I'll go 7. I think I'm on the 7 range of this whole situation, where I agree with Zach, but I think 2 of those moves, if you trade Garrett Bowles and Cortland Sutton in the offseason, those were 2 thought of core pieces, and there aren't a lot of core pieces on this team, just like a year ago. So like I would move it more towards a 7 range just with those 2 moves. Like there are what makes it a 10 at that point? Like
the need that you create by doing that, Joey. Talk to me about the need that you create by making those trades.
I just think also though, Bree, like sometimes you need to get worse before you get better. There's a lot of truth to that statement. You can't roll out a team of aging players at this point. Seriously, like Sutton and Bulls at some point, they're not going to be here forever and ever and ever. And the Broncos just have not been good enough under them. And can you continue to build this young team with them aging in it? Or would you rather have like a timeline of players kind of make more sense? And that's why I would move it towards a 7. I think ultimately there is value to getting worse before you get better. And that might be this season. It could be.
There absolutely is. And like, will it create some need? Yes, in the sense that you're moving on from players and now you have to replace them. You have to replace them anyways. Like realistically, just looking at how the Broncos have to rebuild, how they have to find a quarterback, how they're positioned to go about finding that quarterback and really just overhauling the rest of their roster. It is pretty unlikely Garrett Bowles is on the next Denver Broncos team that makes the playoffs, or that makes, I'd say makes the playoffs. It's pretty unlikely that Justin Simmons is on the next Denver Broncos team that makes the playoffs. And so if that's the case, if it already looks like these guys probably aren't going to contribute to our high end winning, that's when I think you make the case for potentially moving on. Even though it's not fun, even though it's painful, I don't know. It's one thing to be bad and cheap, like the Lions were before this season. Because like, hey, we've torn it down. We've got all these young pieces. We feel optimistic about. We're a young, cheap, growing, developing team. The Broncos are old, expensive, and bad. And that is a very, very problematic combo to be in terms of team building. Tearing it down to add assets like draft capital to be able to help get the team younger and cheaper will get the team in a better position, even if that's not felt immediately.
All right. So I'm going to readjust my little range, my little meter that I built for everybody. Paul said, don't return the core as a 10, bringing back the core as a 3. Okay. Coop wants to know, and Zach, I'll let you answer after I give my redesignation here. Any big cap moves in particular that you're thinking about, Zach? With a very smirky smile. Coop, hold your thought for just 1 second. All right. I'm going to fall to a 6.5, 7. I still want to push it to a 7.5 because once you make those moves, you're basically isolating the fact that you are sweeping everything off the table and looking to reinvigorate and create an identity, like Joey said. And Zach, well, you're making, middle of the road moves, but you're opening up gaps that already existed. Like we already had questions. You just got the line back to a spot in which they could help their quarterback. Don't have a quarterback. Now you're going to put your new quarterback behind a line that's going to maybe possibly fail if you don't have Garrett Bowles out there. I like the idea that he could maintain and stay there and the Broncos become competitive in the next 2 years. But you get rid of a guy like Simmons. and you don't have a base defense because you're losing a lot of guys in free agency and they're your most useful chess pieces, you're just basically auctioning off your future here. And I think that's where I'm at with where I'm sitting with all these moves we're talking about.
Where I'd push back on that is I don't think Justin Simmons is necessarily the Broncos' future, or Garrett Bowles is necessarily the Broncos' future. In regard to trading a Pat Surtain, I'm with you. In regard to trading a Baron Browning and a Nick Benito, they honestly don't have a lot of great young building blocks, but like players like that. Yeah, but if trading players like that, I'm with you. Like the Bears trading Roquan Smith, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. You do have to have good players. If Simmons was 25 or 26, 20, like I'd be with you. It's getting up there. I think this is kind of like your last chance to get quality capital for these guys. And it aligns with you maybe tearing down and getting younger anyways. And like, you know what? Garrett Bowles deserves to be on a competitive team, which he never has gotten to be in his NFL career, as does Justin Simmons, when he's never really gotten to do that in his NFL career. It's like no disrespect to those guys. I just think they're misaligned timeline wise. These guys are at the end of their career when you expect someone to be chasing victories, and the Broncos are at the tail end of a horrible swing and miss that's going to lead them to tear some things down and rebuild. As for like cat moves, from like Colton's question, I said like, yeah, the Tim Patrick one, I would be surprised if that doesn't happen. DJ Jones, I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen. And then I think one of the two wide receivers, Judy, or so, it could be both, but I think at least one of them. It's been a holding pattern for over a year, as I just said a minute ago, but I don't know. It feels like eventually one of those two, something's got to give, and one of those two has to go. I don't know which one it'll be. I used to think it was definitely going to be Judy, but I don't know. The more and more I talk about it, the more and more I feel like Court has a very good chance of being moved instead.
Joey, question that. Yeah. Let's say we stand packed with the O-line just because it makes sense to do so. You already dumped a shit ton of money into it. You're not moving off McGlinchey anytime soon, unfortunately. But you do have to tackle the front seven for the Broncos. You know that you have holes for the D-line. What is the one move that you think that they have to make? If they don't bring back Jones, they have to help Purcell in run defense. What exactly do the Broncos need? Because we know it's pass rush, but what else? Because you need to take a look at the interior. Where do you hope they go in that direction?
Ooh, that's a tough question, Bree, because there's so many directions you can go. I think the only guy that I feel confident in, like really confident in, is Zach Allen. I'm right. Yeah, like it's part of it. Like Zach Allen is the one dude on this defensive line that is a disruptor. Outside of that, they have pieces and role players. I think all of the edge rushers kind of fit a role and are really good in their role. But you're kind of looking for the vice versa, the opposite of them. Like I want a big run stopping guy as well on the edge. I want someone like that. I also want a big run stopper in the middle. The Broncos need more depth across their interior defensive line. I don't think you can tackle this front seven in one move. If I'm being honest, I don't think you can. I think it takes a lot, and it's going to take kind of a rehaul, a little bit up front, a lot of new faces. You're going to need, I think they're like, what do you think, Zach? Like 2-3 players away from really having a very strong unit in your front or your defensive line. I don't think they're that close. Zach's muted.
Yes. It's
literally an episode. It's actually crazy.
I'm so annoyed.
This isn't. I think they think this is scripted. It's not scripted.
It's not. No. I continue to forget.
I wait for it every show and I get so excited.
God damn it. What were we talking about? I lost my train of thought.
I said that I think the Broncos, I don't think you can fix the defensive line in one move.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's 3 moves away from
I think it's more than 2-3. I think it's more because you think you have I think you have 3 edge pieces you like. but you need to, I think we both agree you need to add like a star to that group, a Batman, as we keep saying. So I think that's one. I think you need 2 more defensive linemen, like one, and you have a starting group, but you kind of need like rotation. The defensive line is going to rotate a lot. So I think you need 2 there. So that gets you up to 3. And then you might need 2 inside linebackers. You need at least 1. So that gets you to 4.
You think to have a good unit, though, they need to replace both? That's all
I
I'm
would
trying
say
to
really
say.
strong. From you saying really strong, to get to good front 7, I'm with you. Yeah, like 2, 3.
I don't know. I think ultimately, like I saw it with the year before, like they with a better version of Randy Gregory and
And Bradley Chubb playing at like extremely high levels, and DJ Jones playing at a high level, and Draymond Jones playing at a high level.
Guys, if you are
wait,
not
1 second, let me
trying,
finish my thought.
oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
no, not you. That's
No, that's on me.
But even towards the end, their run defense wasn't as atrocious as it was this entire year. This year, their run defense was just absolutely atrocious with those same 2 inside linebackers. Like I think with a better version of Randy Gregory, and ultimately like Zach Allen and Draymond Jones were a wash. The real big difference there, part of their run defense in particular, and I guess I'm kind of changing the conversation a little bit, but I think yes, I just don't think it has to be that severe. I would say to have a good team, good front 7, you need a more physical edge rusher, at least 1, and then you need a couple interior defensive line pieces, and it gets you to a good unit up front.
Okay, I like the idea that you're talking about a good unit. I like that Zach brings up what would be necessary for a really good unit. Guys, if you don't take the pressure off of the secondary for next season and beyond, you're losing a lot of them in either free agency to injury. The Broncos don't have a deep secondary. They don't have the depth that they need at safety or CB. So you do have to take the pressure off by creating a really good front. And so I don't think that one move to kind of make it solid is going to help this defense moving forward if that's your plan. If it's not, have a good question here from Dante. I'm going to throw this in Joey's direction just because he was just in Mobile. How's this year's draft for the D-line?
Not very great. Not very great. There's a couple edge rushers out there that are interesting. If you're looking at Broncos first round picks, I would say the edge group is okay. You're looking at an okay group. They don't have that. What was it like? They don't have their Myles Garrett of this class. There's no Bradley Chubb of this class. That guy that's going to go in the top 5 no matter what because he's that good. I think the Broncos might get their pick of whatever edge is on the board if it's there, just because there's not any that went beforehand. Interior defensive line, I wouldn't draft any interior defensive line with a first round pick. It's not a very strong interior defensive line class. I do think there are some edge guys out there though. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of the reason why I said earlier, like you might have to get worse before you get better, because there's just no way you can fix this all in 1 year. You can't do it. Like the Russ situation with that contract that was given, it's handicapped the Broncos so much that this isn't just an issue to fix in 1 year. I don't think they can. I don't think it's possible. They would have to really, really, go deep into that, where they're getting a lot of great play out of free agents that weren't signed for very much, and a lot of them. And then you'd have to get great play from your 4th, 5th round pick rookies. It would ask a lot to fill all these holes in 1 year.
A follow-up question. Oh, sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just before you move it, yeah, I don't. Sorry, I actually lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
I apologize for that. My question was a follow-up because I know how hard it is to establish and evolve offensive line players. Now, on the defensive line, I know it can be a little bit different, but you're looking for a couple of years for centers, guards, tackles to be able to have the uptake necessary to keep up with the speed of the NFL. We've seen it in the league thus far that there really isn't a crop for taking up and coming offensive line players and just plug and playing them their first year in the league. We've seen that with the draft picks that have happened in the past under George Payton just recently. How much more difficult, or is it in line with the idea that the trenches are also difficult on the other side of the ball? Could that be something that we're looking at, that we may not need to go in the rookie sphere, but look to pick up some free agents for the defensive line?
Really quick, this just ties into the thing I was going to say, which I remember now. Both these problems lie at the feet of George Payton. For everyone that wants to defend George Payton and say like the Russell Wilson trade is his mistake, both these problems, honestly, a lot of the roster problems come back to his team building, like looking at the defense. And Bree, you were talking about they're putting way too much pressure on this secondary. And the front's not contributing enough. Yeah, because George Payton believed they should have built this secondary first, which is kind of zagging relative to, I think, what the rest of the league believes. And they've been punished as a result. Like, yeah, Patrick Surtain's awesome. I think we all agree. But if no one else is covering their assignment, it doesn't really matter. And you can't rush the passer. It doesn't really matter. And you're having to blitz every play. I don't know. It's just that the problems have compounded there on defense, and it's also true on offense. They've invested so little into the offensive line. When they had these limited draft classes. Hey, Joey, you're muted. Richards, really quick. I'm throwing that out.
I was about to say that tied into what Bree's question was right there, that last part. For those, that offensive line part. You want to draft years in ahead on the offensive line, Bree, to answer your question with that.
That's what I was getting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did take a long run around there, but yeah, that's why they need to be drafting offensive line. They've invested too little in there. It's like Alex Forsyth and Luke Wattenberg. When they had limited like capital years and they wanted to like build their depth. If you remember the 2022 class, when they decided to just draft a bunch of special teamers, what would have been better than intentionally drafting a bunch of special teamers would have been like building up some depth along the trenches. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And, good offensive lines, teams that typically have good offensive line, like the Saints did when Sean was there. A lot of these tackles, they'll draft the guy before it actually is a big need. They'll draft him a year out. That's something like the Eagles do a lot at tackle and across their offensive line. They'll draft these players a year out, Bree, and they'll ultimately start working there. And I do think there is some truth also to what you said in that defensive line, guys. I would need to look at more stats, but it feels like they have more impact as a rookie because I just think you're able to get away with more, hey, I'm really big and physical. So if you spend first round picks at that position, they can kind of get away with it more as rookies. Whereas offensive line, as you know, and I know, it's all about repetition and technique. I think that's a very solid point you made, Bree. Ultimately, but it also at the same time, why not draft a tackle a year out? Because it's going to be an issue next year if it's not an issue this year.
It's always going to be an issue. You don't have the draft pick. The Broncos only have one top 100 pick. So let's talk about how it's not going to go that way and they keep shooting themselves in the foot. I mean that with love. I mean that in fandom, but I also mean that in the idea has been a quarterback away. We will at some point here on Let's Talk Broncos talk about all of the quarterbacks and iterations that we've gone through. But 2 years ago, the Broncos thought that they were plugging in enough quarterback to really be in a position to win. That didn't work out. And so now you're seeing a complete reuptake from those decisions. And it's crazy how the flap of a butterfly's wings have put us into this position where there's a lot of question marks and there's no easy way to plug those holes. I'm really sad Alex is not in the chat because he would have had a reaction to what I just said there. I know that we're kind of running a little bit over what we were going to be talking about, but there is a little bit of smoke again around the Taysom Hill conversation. We keep bringing it up, but I almost want to prepare everyone at home as they're watching that you're going to get a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Taysom Hill marriage. There's going to be something weird going on. Is that enough creative genius? And I say that in quotation marks, that would elicit some form of an offense, or is that just setting us up to understand that this is the Flacco era all over again? And we're just sort of prepping ourselves for a not so stellar year in 2024.
I would hope, like I said earlier, that not like the Flacco year, this is the year the Broncos get worse before they get better. Just actually be bad. Like that's part of the issue here, guys. I say this on the timeline, and everyone wants to kill me whenever I say it. The reason why, like, why can't the Broncos figure out this damn quarterback thing? It's out of control because all the top quarterbacks go early, and the Broncos are never in position to draft one of them. And when they have been, they just decided not to. It's like, and then we all look around, man. What's wrong with the Broncos? Why can't they figure it out? Well, because we're investing. We put one first-round pick at pick 28, and then we put a second-round pick into one, and we just want it to be better. That's not how it works. It's just not how it works.
I bet it's off Joey's point. I bet every offseason, every August, if you wanted to go back through and look at all the Broncos blogs in Broncos country, you could find, if not a majority, a very large percentage predicting the Broncos to go 9-8, 10-7, 9-7, 10-6, in that range. And they haven't done it during this whole post Manning stretch. I guess they had the 9-7 year with Coobs, but ever since Coobs left, they haven't been able to do it. They've continued to disappoint, but the reason it's a constant year after year after year is because they're perpetually chasing it. Every year I feel I'm having conversations with Broncos fans at camp, and it's like, yeah, I could see them competing for a wild card spot this year. When have we not said that before a season recently? And like, the reason it keeps going bust is because they're not there. They've let their roster kind of slowly go into disrepair as they hop from like savior to savior, hoping, well, if we just put this guy in, then we're going to be ready. Well, if we just put this guy in, then we're going to be ready. The problem is pretty widespread at this point, and it's going to take wholesale changes. They are going to have to probably be bad a bit. They might have to sell off some players to accumulate picks so they can add young talent, so they can build the next competitive version of the Broncos rather than continue to be on like in this purgatory of suck. That's where they're just hovering in the middle, and that's not helping anyone. That's what's perpetuating this fan experience, is that they won't just bottom out. And you see the common sentiment on Twitter, or I think just generally in Broncos country against that is, oh, but we've been bad for 8-9 years now. I don't want to be bad any longer. I want to be good. And I get that. I want to be good too. It'd be great if the Broncos were good, but that's not where they are. Like, I want to eat cake all the time too. I really do. But if I'm overweight, maybe I should not be eating like cake every meal of the day. Like maybe I should tone it down a little. Maybe I should go without a little bit. That's the thing. It's just, I don't know. They won't get it. You haven't been going without this thing. It's like, oh, I don't want to bottom out any longer. You haven't gone without it. You haven't gone on this diet. That's why things aren't getting better. You aren't remedying your behavior.
Well, and then they have also been in position a couple times to draft a guy, and they just decide not to. But that's part of the issue.
Because they went, well, we could add Bradley Chubb and we add Case Keenum, and we're going to be right back in the mix.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, Zach, remember this conversation because I'm trying to argue with you pretty much. Remember this conversation when you come to me talking about, but the team culture. I don't want to hear it. Don't talk to me about the team culture, the locker room, blah, blah, blah. When I'm talking about the Broncos need to bottom out in the halfway of the season anymore. I don't want to hear it. That's all.
Joey, you can paint a tank however you want. Call it what it is.
I'm right.
I don't know. I think locker room buy-in is worth like a 5th round pick, or worth the difference between a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick.
Okay, we'll see how long that lasts when Sean Payton has gotten on everybody's last nerve, and they're still not winning any games. We'll have a conversation mid-season. Let's bring this up. Set a reminder in your calendar, not Joey, Zach, that we'll talk about this mid-season next year, because Joey will
next year. They're not going to be good, and it's going to be a process of cleaning people out. I want to see like Dan Campbell's first year in Detroit next year. That's what I'm hoping for.
Coop says purgatory of suck. That's hilarious. Is hilarious. I was putting words in your mouth, Coop. Yeah. All right, that's fine. Joey, I think we should give everybody some happy stuff to end the day on. That's because it's time for Joey's question of the day.
It is Joey's question of the day, and I haven't even thought about the question. This is about to come off the top right now. Forgot we were doing this.
Would air horns help?
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, all right, guys. If the Broncos, okay, let's say you have to draft one of these two positions with the first round pick. Which one are you doing? All right, and I know Zach is going to get fired up about cornerback for one.
He's just doing this to annoy me. I can.
We're gonna go cornerback for one, and then I'm gonna go. What's a position Zach doesn't think is important right
Punters, kickers, tight ends, linebackers.
Tight end, and it's not Brock Bowers.
Corner. I'm spreading that card up. Unless like the tight end has a considerably higher, because what are we talking about then? We're talking about like
nose guard.
Arian Arnold or like Jatavian Sanders?
Nose guard.
Nose guard or cornerback?
Yeah, they're equal prospects for this.
But positional value, Joey.
The positional value absolutely matters with first round picks. If those are my two options,
I'm going corner.
God,
I love it. Look at his face. He's so.
But like defensive line's important too. Like I don't think the gaps there is that huge, and the Broncos
knows it is.
I don't know, like get Aaron Donald and it's fine. Get Chris Jones.
It's not nose. Neither of them are nose.
So what? Just like a pure? You're talking about a pure like zero.
I'm talking about one tech. I'm talking about a one tech. I'm not talking about a guy that can move all over across my D line. He's a one tech, but also plays.
Talking about Jordan Davis. We're talking about Jordan Davis.
Yes, talking about like Jordan Davis. Like I'm talking about 300.
Okay, then the corner.
Then you're running the Raiders.
Like interior defensive lineman. I was just like, oh, a D tackle? Yeah. No, you mean like straight like Terrence Knighton.
Yeah, I'm talking about pot roast. Talking about. Okay, last one. Kicker or punter? I want Zach to tell me which one's more valuable.
Wait,
are they like legit first round prospects? They're like elite, like the draft community's like, I don't know, this guy could go first round. Like that type of thing?
No, neither of them are first round prospects, but the Broncos are picking a kicker or a punter with the first round pick.
Okay, but are they elite punting prospects? Are they?
Yeah, are they punt god? Like we need to know.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. They're good players. They're both good players, and it doesn't.
Best
really
kicker you've ever seen. The second
like
coming.
If it's like, would you rather have Sebastian Janikowski or Ray Guy? Right?
You're doing like mental gymnastics right now. Okay, they're equal prospects. Doesn't matter how good they are because they're equal prospects, and the Broncos are picking one of the two. Would you rather have the kicker or a punter? Because I'm trying to get you to think about which one's more valuable, buddy. Damn.
I think kicker's more valuable. I draft the punter though, because I think punting is less of like the mental game with golf. Like I think Roberto Aguayo had a fine amount of talent, but I think being drafted that high and getting all the hate and everything messed with his head. I think kicking is incredibly mental. Talk about like Brett Maher going from being like pretty accurate his whole career to just like self-destructing over like a 12-month span. I think if it's like
enough of the kickers and punters now.
Talented punter, I don't think he's gonna just like fall off. I think he's gonna remain talented.
All right, fair. I'm kidding.
The kicker's more valuable.
Snapper or gunner? I'm just kidding. So let's go.
Patrick Paul or a kicker?
Hey, don't give me. Let's wrap this up, Brie.
I'm trying to. You just you're like throwing fuel and matches, and I'm like, can I get out of here? All right, we'll be back Wednesday with the That's Good Broncos crew. See you then. Tune in. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're a lot of fun. I'm just killing time till